Hi everyone, I wanted to read a story to you today. The story is called The Tiny Seed by Eric Carle. Along with reading the story, we're going to be focusing on two things, science and writing. We've talked a lot about how plants grow and we've talked about seasons. So these are things that are going to be appearing in the story. And when we're done with the story, I want you to do some writing with it. So once again, this is The Tiny Seed. It is autumn. A strong wind is blowing. It blows flower seeds high in the air and carries them far across the land. One of the seeds is tiny, smaller than any of the others. Will it be able to keep up with the others? And where are they all going? One of the seeds flies higher than the others. Up, up it goes. It flies too high, and the sun's hot rays burn it up. But the tiny seed sails on with the others. Another seed lands on a tall and icy mountain. The ice never melts, and the seed cannot grow. The rest of the seeds fly on, but the tiny seed does not go as fast as the others. Now they fly over the ocean. One seed falls into the water and drowns. The others sail on with the wind, but the tiny seed does not go as high as the others. One seed drifts down onto the desert. It is hot and dry, and the seed cannot grow. Now the tiny seed is flying very low, but the wind pushes it on with the others. Finally, the wind stops, and the seeds fall gently down on the ground. A bird comes by and eats one seed. The tiny seed is not eaten. It is so small that the bird does not see it. Now it is winter. After their long trip, the seeds settle down. They look just as if they are going to sleep in the earth. Snow falls and covers them like a soft white blanket. A hungry mouse that also lives in the ground eats a seed for his lunch. But the tiny seed lies very still, and the mouse does not see it. Now it is spring. After a few months, the snow has melted. It is really spring. Birds fly by, the sun shines, rain falls, the seeds grow so round and full that they start to burst open a little. Now they are not seeds anymore, they are plants. First, they send roots down into the earth. Then their little stems and leaves begin to grow up toward the sun and air. There is another plant that grows much faster than the new little plants. It is a big, fat weed, and it takes all the sunlight and the rain away from one of the small new plants. And that little plant dies. The tiny seed hasn't begun to grow yet. It will be too late. Hurry! But finally, it too starts to grow into a plant. The warm weather also brings the children out to play. They too have been waiting for the sun and springtime. One child doesn't see the plants as he runs along, and oh, he breaks one. Now it cannot grow anymore. The tiny plant that grew from the tiny seed is growing fast, but its neighbor grows even faster. Before the tiny plant has 3 leaves, The other plant has 7. And look, a bud, and now even a flower. But what is happening? First, there are footsteps. Then, a shadow looms over them. Then a hand reaches down and breaks off the flower. A boy has picked the flower to give to a friend. It is summer. Now the tiny plant from the tiny seed is all alone. It grows on and on. It doesn't stop. The sun shines on it and the rain waters it. It has many leaves. It grows taller and taller. It is taller than the people. It is taller than the trees. It is taller than the houses. And now a flower grows on it. People come by far and near to look at this flower. It is the tallest flower they have ever seen. It is a giant flower. All summer long, the birds and bees and butterflies come visiting. They have never seen such a big and beautiful flower. Now it is autumn again. The days grow shorter, the nights grow cooler, and the wind carries yellow and red leaves past the flower. Some petals drop from the giant flower, and they sail along with the bright leaves over the land and down to the ground. The wind blows harder. The flower has lost almost all of its petals. It sways and bends away from the wind, but the wind grows stronger and shakes the flower. Once more, the wind shakes the flower, and this time the flower seed pod opens. Out come many tiny seeds that quickly sail far away on the wind. The end. So I liked that story because it has a lot of things that we've talked about this year. One thing we talked about a lot is plants and how plants grow. We talked about how they start as a little seed and how they turn into, the seed goes into roots, and the roots start to grow a stem, and then the stem grows and more things grow on it. It could be a flower, it could be a fruit, maybe a vegetable, maybe a tree. So many things that can come out of that tiny seed, depending on what it is. So we've talked about the process of how it starts out as a little seed and how it can grow into a plant. So that's what I want you to think about today. I want you to think about the life cycle of a plant. You can choose any kind of plant, any kind you want. So think about what you could write about for a plant. Now, while you're writing about how a plant grows into a plant, I want you to think about transition words. We've called them transition words, or we've called them sequence words. So I want you to do some writing. And to do the writing, I want you to use sequence words. Remember the sequence words that we've used. There are many different words we've used. These are the sum of the words that we've used. We've used the words first, next, then, and last. Now, using these words, if you just use one sentence for each word, you'd already have 4 sentences. Now, there are other words you could even use. We know that you could say the words like after. You could, instead of last, use a word like finally. So think about what sequence words you want to use. Now, when you use these words, I want you to write about how a plant life cycle goes on. We've talked all about that. You know what it first starts out as. You know what happens next. Then you can tell us what happens. And last or finally, tell us about that plant. So think of how you can write a paragraph or more on the life cycle of a plant. Now, when we read that story, it went through a lot of the process of how a tiny seed grows into a plant. So that can even give you some ideas if you don't remember all the things we've talked about this year. Okay? So I want you to write a paragraph and use sequence words. If you need a little help with sequence words, don't forget you can use the words first, next, then, and last. Don't forget punctuation. After we use our sequence words, don't forget your comma. And at the end of your sentence, think about what goes at the end. Is it a period? Is it a question mark? Is it an exclamation point? And there's one more thing I want you to remember. We've talked about the life cycle of a plant and how last it becomes a plant, but then we know that the life cycle doesn't just stop there. It goes on. And what happens all over again. So I want you to think about that when you're doing your writing. So do a great job. Remember, handwriting counts. And I would love to hear your stories. So if you finish your writing and you want to take a picture of it and send it to me, that would be great. So do an awesome job. I miss you all and keep working hard.